I'm Ariana Grande.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo.
And you're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Visit bpn.fm to discover more.
There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. He was Gus on the U.S. National Tour 4, and then he was in the Cats chorus twice during the original Broadway production. So welcome, Lee Lobenhofer, and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. I love having Gus's because generally you all agree with me that Grisabelle is the wrong choice. So we will get to that point. But I always love starting at the beginning because especially with the tours 4 and original Broadway, you predate the 1998 movie, which is like where half of my guests kind of seem to know Cats from.
Yeah.
So my question to you is when did you get first introduced to the show? It had been around for a little bit before you went on tour, but It wasn't long. So what was your first experience with it?
Well, I went into my agent's office and I said, anything happening? And typical of an agent, he said, no. And I looked on his table and there was an audition for Cats. And I said, what about Cats? And he said, well, you want to see that? You want to go in for that? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I went to see it. And my first audition for Cats was for Rum Tum Tugger. And I had not seen the show, didn't know anything about the show. So I went in and decided, okay, this is what Rum Tum Tugger must be. And I was basically doing David Bowie / Prince / everything completely wrong. But then, so I went in and auditioned, but that same day I went in and saw the show and I went, I don't want to play Rum Tum Tugger. I want to play Gus. Gus speaks to me. So then I went back in and I said, no, I want to my agent. I said, I really want to be seen for Gus. And so then I went in for Gus and lo and behold, they cast me in it. And I have such an affinity to Gus. My heart always swells whenever I talk about him because I love the guy. Being a theater person and Gus being a theater person and now being a little bit longer in the tooth than I was when I played Gus, I can even appreciate his point of view a little bit more.
I love that. So you originally, they could not be more polar opposite.
Absolutely.
Little similarities between Tugger and Gus in the sense of like rock starish, but past his prime and early in his kind of peak.
Yeah.
But opposite character to play.
Totally opposite character. And also something I'd done Grease twice and I'd kind of done that rock and roll thing. And I wasn't particularly interested in reviving that sort of sense memory. So instead I want to challenge something else. And Gus spoke to me for a variety of different reasons, which if you're interested, I can share that. But basically,
yeah, let's hear.
Yeah. Well, my father was quadriplegic. So I became a dancer and all of that stuff. It was super physical. But then I saw Gus and when it talked about his hand shaking, palsy that makes his hand shake. Well, my dad's hand and body shook. And as a testament to him, I decided that, I was going to take his story and add it into Gus and make it. So it had a very personal feeling to me, not just looking from the outside, but I was also from the inside.
Wow. That is, what a powerful way to bring like a very personal piece of your life into the role.
Yeah, it was. I always felt like I was doing a service, not only to my dad, but also just to anybody with any sort of a disability, making sure that, Gus was representative of them truthfully and not doing a parody or anything like that.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So you get cast in this role.
Yeah.
And this is 2 years into this tour went for like 10, 15 years, I think.
Yeah, forever.
This is 2 years into this, I think the tour, which is, it's, really the second time it toured the U.S.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested in what kind of rehearsal process goes along with that. Like how much story do you get told about all of your characters? Because you end up playing 3 in the show.
Yeah.
And how much kind of like goes into that process when it's between, switching between a couple years of something that's going on multiple years in a row?
It was very interesting because I started in New York when I got cast. First of all, I went in and spent 2 days listening to the story of the cats and the interrelationships of all the characters. And then upon listening for 2 days okay, so this is Tugger and Munkustrap are brothers. They're all sons of Old Deuteronomy, and then they follow it up with, but none of this is important for the audience to know. But as long
my
as
whole show centers around this.
Yeah.
This is everything I want to know.
It was all about, you need to know the relationships of the tribe in order to have truthful relationships and all of that stuff. So that was fun. And then they spent a day. They said, "Okay, here's the set." This was on the Broadway set, and they said, "We'll be back in about 4 or 5 hours. Just play." So I just spent time by myself, which allowed you to not be self-conscious. Okay, I'm sitting here licking my paw and cleaning my ears and all of that stuff that we did as cats. And it's very easy to shut down and say, I look like such an idiot. But when they leave you into the space that is sort of perfect for the size of everything, it allows you to bring yourself down into the size of a cat, but also nobody's watching you. So there's no sense of, oh my God, I'm making such an idiot of myself. Instead, you could just explore and play. And that became my license to just go out there and completely immerse myself in being a cat. And of course, I've also been a cat lover all my life. I have 2 cats right now that we say
there's
from
one over your shoulder.
There's one, yeah, absolutely. And we have 2 that we rescued from the garage next door, and I have 6 feral cats that I take care of outside every night. So sort of a big cat fan.
Wow.
So it was wonderful to really delve into the physicality of a cat.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because there's that part, there's the dancer part, but then also you spend 2 days learning a story that you're specifically told we don't, as the audience, need to know, which is a wild part of this show. So I want to ask you, what do you remember about your Gus backstory? What's the part you were told?
They didn't say too much other than the fact that, he was an English theater cat who, tried to get on stage whenever he could, but whenever they needed the cat, he was sort of the go-to person, other than, he was like probably second. There was somebody better than him, but he was always wanting to be the first one, but he was always maybe the second cat. But that he just immersed himself and loved the theater so much. And that's why he says, and I say now these kittens, they do not get trained as we did in the days when Victoria reigned. It's like, yeah, he really immersed himself into the world of the theater and totally bought into the importance of it, which I could also relate to because I do the same thing as an actor. I completely buy into the importance of theater, even though a lot of people might disagree with me. I feel like it is a way to change the world. And he felt the same way, in that the new generation wasn't doing as full of a service to the art form as he felt was necessary.
Yeah. What did they tell you about Bustifer? Because that's the other part of the track, right? And Growltiger, which I'll ask next. Yeah,
Bustifer is such a ball. He's just so full of himself, but so full of whatever he can get his hands on to eat as well. Who was it? Like, there were some actors that, like Peter Ustinov and stuff like that they would put into my mind as saying, think of yourself as this grand maester of, because he's not really a part of the tribe. He just comes by every once in a while. So you kind of feel like he's actually an indoor cat who occasionally goes outdoor, because he gets fed a lot and he's spoiled and totally thinks he's not only sexy, but also gorgeous, even though he's the size of, a blimp.
Yeah. And then, did they tell you much about Growltiger?
Growltiger was, they would say things like, think Errol Flynn, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., all of that stuff. So you're a swashbuckling, big, blowhard, but very theatrical. It was not as a real character, but as a big theatrical character.
Yeah, because it's a story within a story within a story almost.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Are you Growl Tiger? Are you Gus Asparagus? Or as when I was dancing, because that was the interesting thing about the difference between the tour and the Broadway tracks. On the tour, we had 2 less cats, so they needed dancers.
The twins weren't there, right? That was who was cut.
Yeah, and so they needed extra dancers, which was great for me because I was a dancer as well. So every night you would dance the Jellicle Ball, and the Jellicle Ball it's always like, okay, pull up your socks, here we go, let's go.
Yeah.
And then when I came to Broadway, it was like Gus comes out, he does that opening sequence, and then he escapes and runs away. And I went, no, I want to stay. I want to dance the ball.
Yeah.
Because as much as it was exhausting, it was also just so much fun.
So you are Asparagus in the opening number.
Yeah.
And then you're Bustifer.
Yeah.
And then you're Asparagus in the ball.
Yeah.
And then you're Gus in Act 2. For the rest of the time? Is that the track?
Well, sort of, yeah. I used to call him GeneriGUS because GeneriGUS was when I wasn't really Asparagus, because Asparagus is old, and when you're dancing the ball and all of that stuff, you're still in sort of the costume without the big cloak and all of that stuff. So that I wasn't really Gus, I was something else. So I just called him GeneriGUS.
So I love that you call that. It's so much better than in the 2016 revival. They called him Peter. Like they named him a different cat.
Yeah.
And so I like GeneriGUS way better. That's fun. Okay. So that makes sense. So that is a body essentially to dance. Like you're not supposed to be known as Gus at that point. You're supposed to be just another
member of the tribe
person to be able to. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So you go on tour. I'm curious what the crowd reaction is this, because this is, what is it, 89, 90-ish? Like this is, it's late 80s, early 90s. It's been on Broadway for about 8 to 10 years at this point. It's been around for about 10 years. It's only been through the U.S. once. I think Tour 3 did kind of a roll through the U.S. once, and now this is the 4 is the next one. So what is the crowd reaction? Do most people know what they're seeing, or were you really the first time that they were experiencing it again? It
was a little bit of both. You definitely had the Cats fans that would come up and do all of the fun things and dress up and all of that. But we were also playing cities. Like we were the first tour, as far as I know, to play Anchorage, Alaska.
Wow.
So they had never seen it at all. So it was all new to them. And typical with Cats, it's like people were either enthralled or very confused. Why are those people?
There's no middle.
Yeah.
There's no middle. Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
I always say that to be in Cats, some people love it, some people hate it, but Cats is so much more fun to be in than to see. Every night I look forward to doing it, whether it was, starting 50 feet off the side of the stage and getting a running start and hitting the stage and sliding all the way across the stage on your knees, or doing all of that stuff. It was so much fun. And then I never felt with Gus, especially because I had that personal connection to it, that it got old. Or it got stale. Mm-hmm. I always felt like it was a challenge. It was something that I could make statements with, but also it was challenging me as an actor.
Yeah, you get a little freedom in the show because you get little moments and interactions with the different cast members that you can change. So I think it's a little bit less stuck than some other shows where you really are like, hit this mark at this point, at this time, and nothing else. But it does feel like I've talked to 100+ cast members at this point, and it almost feels like, I kind of jokingly would say, it's like the Jellicle. It's like its own cult. Like everyone who's been in it is like enthralled and loved it, and their experience was great, and they're just they're tied to it. So it's like they almost became Jellicle tribe members themselves and have left, and so are thrilled to talk about it, which is why this podcast is still here. 100+ episodes later, is that everyone loved their experience.
The connections that you make with the other performers, because especially on tour, on Broadway, it was great and the connection is there. But on tour, because you don't know anybody else in the city, your whole day is basically absorbed with the cast. You're going to the gym together, you're eating together, you're going out after the show together. And my Jelly Lorem, Alice Lynn, was... she had been doing it before when I came in, so she had already established herself in the tour. And she welcomed me with such open arms. And to this day, I look at her as one of my dear friends. And the relationship that we've developed, not only off stage, but especially on stage, her Jelly Lorem taking care, or and then becoming Griddlebone, but her Jelly Lorem taking care of old Gus was so tender and so warm that, how can you not love doing that every day?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so true with the tour. You kind of you're on probably a tight bus and you're going city to city, nobody, you're in a hotel all together.
Yeah.
It's it's like it's your whole family at that point.
Absolutely. It was interesting because when I started, they gave me some ideas and suggestions. And one of the things was get a snuggly. And I went, what?
Yeah.
Get a snuggly for on the bus, because it was a bus and truck. We flew to the major cities, but a lot of times we were in a bus. So we would get on the bus and everybody would lay down on the floor or across the seats or wherever their spot was. And they all had some sort of stuffed animal that they could snuggle up to sleep during the tour. I mean, during the sometimes long bus rides. So eventually I got myself a stuffed tiger, obviously for Growl Tiger, and joined the thing. They said to avoid homesickness, you have to have a little piece of home with you, and you have to have a snuggly that you can feel like you're there's somebody there for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I grew up playing travel hockey, and it was the same thing. We were in cars all the times together as a group, and I predate, as do you, iPads and everything else to make it easy. So it's just a different life when you're doing that, and you're doing it all over the country for a full year plus at a time. So yeah. I'm sure it's interesting. I love asking though, because of the craziness of tour, do you remember any funny stories or crazy stories of things that happened while you were out on the road?
Oh, so many different things. But one of the things that I talk about is be careful, because karma will get you. We had one of our Mistopheles was a beautiful dancer, unbelievable, gorgeous dancer, but he couldn't walk. He could dance, but every single show, at some point in time during the show, he would step on his own tail, slip and fall on his butt, and then get up. And it was like, you're this incredible dancer. How can you be that klutzy? So I never said anything. And then, of course, the one day I finally said, what is going on with him? He can't walk. And then that night, I stepped on my tail and boop, boom, down on my butt. There it goes. So from then on, I said, okay, be careful about it, because karma will get you. Another interesting thing is how you make such great friends, but people talk about how cycles sort of coincide. My understudy, who got married to the bomb ballerina, and then the two swings, they got married, and then my wife and I were married. And all three of us had kids within a month of each other. So we all three
all from the same show.
I had already left the show, but the cycle had already established itself. So now we all have kids, and they're all almost the same age.
Okay, did you meet your wife on the Cat?
No, I met my wife at Jones Beach and the Muni Opera doing Grease. She was Cha-Cha to Gregorio to my Kaniki. But so we were already together. So I went and I opened in, she's here, Louisville, right? Yes. So I opened in Louisville, but had 2 weeks of rehearsal to go. So I was away doing rehearsal and really getting in. She came for opening night. She took one look at me and she thought, oh my God, are you sick? What happened? Wherever. But she looked, I had dropped like 20 pounds because the show is that physically demanding.
Yeah.
You just sweat buckets during the show. So she took one look at me and she thought, oh my God, what happened? What happened? What did they do to you? So I said, no, this is just Cat's reality.
I have enjoyed, there seems like there's a lot of couples that come out of Cats, which makes sense. Yeah. It's this very physical show. You're kind of all rolling on top of each other. But it's always really interesting depending on who the pairings are, what they were together. And so I've heard, a Tugger and a Bombalurina. I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then you hear somewhere, I'm like, wait, these two cats should not make sense. But it's like, oh yeah, they're actors, like they're not there. But it's super fun. There's a lot of it that does come out of that, which is part of, I think, tour life in general.
Yeah. Touring, you get so close to people in a way that you really don't. Even when I was on Broadway with it, you get close to the people, but they have their lives. They go to their places, and they have to go and they have to, do the wash or whatever. On tour, you just spend every waking moment together. So the bonds are so indelible by the end.
Mm-hmm. So let's fast forward to the Broadway. So you get called in 1990. It's like right after tour, right? That you end up going on tour and you're joining the cast chorus. So that's it's such a new piece. I didn't know that existed until Cats, that there's it's so physically demanding that there's an entire group singing in the pit, the song. So what was that experience? Was it just like you finished tour and they immediately called you, or how did that happen?
Well, the reality of that is I heard that there was the opening and I wanted to get back to my wife at that point. Mm-hmm. So I said, I would really like to move off the tour. I'd been on tour for a year, somewhere around a year, more or less. And I said, I want to get back to my wife and my life. So I would like to come in and join the Broadway cast instead. And they said, well, no. And I realized, I talked about it afterwards to friends of mine, and they said, yeah, a producer, to put you into the Broadway company, it costs money with rehearsals and all of that stuff. And then they have to rehearse somebody to replace you on the tour. So there's two sets of rehearsals that they have to pay for. So it's much cheaper for them to just hire somebody new for the Broadway thing and leave you where you're at. They don't have to pay for one set of rehearsals. So that's when I said, okay, but I really miss my wife. So I think I'm going to give my notice for the show, unless you, and so then they said, okay, well, I said, either way, you're going to have to pay for the two rehearsals. So this way, at least I'm already halfway there. I can be put into the Broadway show pretty quickly because I already know the track pretty much, which was not true because it's very different. But so then they said yes, and they let me to come into the Broadway one.
Amazing. So what's that like? Because it is different. You add in the twins and you have some tweaks to it. Yeah. The rake stage. Yeah. All this other stuff that goes to it.
Yeah. It was interesting getting used to the rake because you're doing double. Because I went on for Gus. I also went on to Old Dude a couple of times.
Wow.
Old Dude was one of my best friends, Ken Primus, at that time. And he was playing Old Dude, and he called out for one Wednesday. So I got to play Old Dude twice. And I was like, this is such a great track. You sit on a tire, you sing a little bit, people come over and love you very much. And then you go up on the tire and you sing again, and then you're done and you get the big dressing room. And I was like, wow. That's kind of cool.
Did you do intermission too?
Oh yeah.
Sitting on stage during intermission?
The whole thing. Sitting on stage and just going into your Zen moment and all of that. So that was fun. I really enjoyed that. But getting used to the rake stage was crazy because I've been doing all of the dancing. Now, admittedly, I danced a lot less on Broadway because of the different track. But even the little bit that I did, it was amazing because you do a double pirouette and you'd find yourself falling into the pit because of the rake, and you had to completely readjust your alignment. And I heard that for the regulars on stage, like especially the Mistopheles during the turns in second, said trying to dance on a flat stage was so completely different that they had a hard time getting off of the rake. Also, on the tour, Gus at the Growl Tiger at the end jumps off the back of the ship, and they had a big crash pad for you, and you throw yourself onto this pit. Mm-hmm. When I did it on Broadway, you jump off the back of the ship, and there was this steel frame about 5 feet by 2.5, 3 feet, and a net that catches you. And that if you were a little bit off, you were just like bam, into the steel frame. So they would teach you, okay, you have to pike into this position, put your hands across your chest, and then just drop into this thing. And I was like, oh, okay. Before it was fun with jumping into a crash pad, but this is like, I'm taking my life into my hands every time I jump off the ship.
It's so strange. I mean, it's like something that should be so similar, but has enough differences because of, stage, and all the back end stuff. And I think even on tour, you probably have a little bit of slight nuances because each theater is a little bit different, a little bit size wise.
Oh yeah. We played everything. We played where, okay, in this theater, we don't have quite the width. So the flooring had to be chopped off. So you didn't have and a lot of times your spacing was set by the marks on the floor. And it's like, okay, that mark doesn't exist anymore because it's a small stage. And then we played arenas, 10,000 seat arenas with big screens on either side so that people could see what's actually happening. And there it was just huge amounts of space that you could just play with.
It's such a strange and fascinating piece of this because like I have only seen it on tour twice, the most recent tour in DC. Mm-hmm. And I grew up going to theater in Indiana every once in a while, whatever came. But those were really big. One of them was like a huge theater, and then the other one was kind of small. And so you just have all these different variances. And a show like Cats, where the set's so elaborate, there's so much happening there that it kind of does tweak it all. But I'd love to hear a couple more if you have any more fun tour or Broadway stories, because I know you had a couple you said you had ready.
Let me see. Oh, on Broadway, there was one guy, Ray. I won't give a last name, but I admired him. He's a fabulous performer. But we would all get there at least a half an hour before. You have to be there half hour. But the makeup, you get trained. The first day, they go in, they do half your face of the makeup, and they say, okay, you do the other half. You do it, and they said, okay, you're on your own. That's it. And then you do all of your own makeup. So some people would get there 45 minutes, an hour before, sometimes start their makeup. And I would start mine right at half hour, start putting it on. And I'd look at Ray, and he's walking around, talking to everybody, having a great time and all of that stuff. He'd get into his costume for the most part and just have it rolled down. And then they'd call places, and he'd have still no makeup on.
Hadn't started
the makeup. They basically go, or maybe they say 3 minutes to places or whatever. And he'd sit down, and with nothing but sponges, we're all, all these brushes and painting and doing all this stuff, nothing but sponges. He would go, bap, 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 bap. And every night be there perfectly on time for places. And you'd look at his makeup, and it was great. It was like, how the heck did you do that in such a short amount of time? I got better and faster in it, but I never got even close to Ray.
I mean, 3 minutes might be a record. So from what I've heard, when there was a regional production, they were saying it took an hour-ish every night when they were trying to figure out. And I've heard from most of the cast members that's 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah. Even when you're used to it. Yeah. Is that about right?
Yeah. Well, I would pretty much start right at half hour. Mine was fairly intricate because of lots of stripes and all of that stuff. But it always took me at least 20 minutes to half an hour to do.
And Ray did it in 3.
And Ray did it in 3. And I was always looking at you. You are the god of Cats makeup.
Ray needs to teach a course. It
exactly.
Like. Yeah, that's it's a part of the show that also too, like, you're drenched, sweating from working out, so physically demanding show, and doing it in that makeup. So I'm like sitting here going like, did Ray even did it stay? Like, did he get it? Did he actually get it through?
Yeah, he did, because he would, at the end of it, like all of us, it would just hit it with powder, a lot of powder on that, because you were going to sweat. I'm trying to think. Interesting thing happened. I got, once you're in Cats, you're always in Cats. So I did it, and then I did Broadway, and then twice they called me up, and somebody got injured or got sick or something, and they needed replacement. So they called me up twice to come in. So one time I got a chance to do it, and my daughter had been born. And she was old enough, sort of, except that I found out probably not, because she came to see the show. But beforehand, she came backstage, and there's everybody with their makeup on and just the wig caps, no yak hair yet. And just the wig caps and all this makeup and all these crazy people looking around her. And my little daughter looks up. From then on, she was terrified of all animals because she had a phobia of all animals until finally, she's 30 now. It's finally, about 5 years ago, she now has a dog, but it instilled such a terror because to see those people gearing up for battle like that, it's crazy.
Yeah, the age dynamic of the show is such a fascinating part that I've kind of jokingly argued with, but I know it's such a kid's show because it goes over the head, but then, you spend 2 days learning the plot, and when you learn the plot and the backstories and relationships, there's some darkness and some very sexual parts to the show that I'm like, a 12-year-old, if you figure that out, shouldn't be seeing this most likely.
Bomb Ballerina and Demeter with their whole story. That was intense. I said, okay. I don't know how much you want me to go into that, but basically McCavity had Bomb as a sex slave until he finally, after a while, saw her younger sister Demeter and decided, threw Bomb back and took Demeter as his sex slave.
And that's told to you, right? Like that is part of the story you're told in the 2 days.
Oh yeah. And then she escaped, and that's why Demeter is always the one that's kind of really skittery and always afraid because she had just escaped McCavity, whereas Bob was more worldly and had been away for a while, but also the two of them were sisters. Yeah, so that's why their costumes are similar. But
interesting. So are they sisters? Because there's a big debate about that, and I've not heard a clear answer.
Yeah,
okay, you were told
that they were sisters, and that he threw over the older sister for the younger sister. But
interesting. Yeah, because it's there are so many different things I think through. I call it now the cat's telephone. As so many people over the years have said it, where the more recent group doesn't think they're sisters, thinks they're like best friends or potentially just maybe related, but not sisters.
Yeah.
And then I've heard that they are sisters. And I did a poll on this on Instagram a little while ago, and I got a 50-50 split, like from fans, like straight down the middle of nobody has a clear answer. So I'm like, I wish somebody, maybe this exists somewhere, but I wish somebody recorded those 2 days of you backstage learning the story from like the original group, like not, it's been passed along and there's, I'm sure, a lot, but I don't think there's a perfect answer to so many things. And maybe that's intentional. But that's what I love about the show, because it's what gives you so many open-ended opportunities. One, as an actor to, portray this slightly different every night, but also as a fan, and especially the super fans who all have, again, very strong opinions about this.
Yeah.
But even someone like me who can say, well, if you take this and assume that that's true, and this and assume that's true, then this can be kind of funny as a byproduct of that, which has been the angle I've kind of had fun with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of it is whoever tells you the story, whether it's Trevor or whoever's in charge of the production at that time. Yeah, like you say, cat's telephone. By the time they get to the story to relate to you, maybe it's been shifted or changed a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Any last stories before we go to rapid fire?
Last stories. Is there anything else that is? The one thing. Everywhere you go, because you sweat so much in the show, that there's communal bottles of water everywhere. And it's these days, they'd say, "What do you mean? You can't share about it." You would just spray it in your mouth. You wouldn't drink out of it, but you would just have a little spigot and it would spray it in your mouth and grab and run. But the bodies of the daily cats were like gnarled tree trunks because there was no water in their bodies. So the understudies would go on in the very revealing costumes. You can't hide anything in those costumes. And even though they were in brilliant shape, amazing physical specimens to the common eye, you could always tell the difference between the regular cat's person and the understudy or the person that just came in, because their bodies hadn't been squeezed out of water yet.
Interesting. I would have never thought that because it's, there's, especially the more recent tour, the swings are on all the time. There's just so much kind of happening to preserve too. I wonder if there's some of the 80s and 90s where it's just like, y'all just go and deal with it type of thing. And now there's probably a little bit more consciousness to protecting the body.
Oh yeah.
But that's kind of fascinating.
Nobody ever called out. I remember the first time I called out, I had been running it probably for 6-8 months or something like that. Never missed a show. And then we were in someplace down south, and I had some catfish that was bad and got food poisoning. I couldn't lift my head up without getting sick, so I finally had to call in. But it was a different mentality back then. Nobody ever called in unless you were basically at death's door.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a different era. And also, who knows? It's just such a different thing. But I also love those catfish as well. Gotcha. On theme.
I hadn't even thought about that. Yes.
On theme.
I've been catfished. Yes.
We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back for more of The Wrong Cat Died. Okay, let's pivot to some rapid fire. So, first one is you got to play a handful of different characters, but forget male, female, vocal range, whatever. If you could go on tomorrow, one character, one night in the show, who would you want to be on for?
Gus.
You still want to go back for Gus?
I still want to. I still feel like there's more that I haven't found in Gus. I love all of the characters. Probably the other one would be Tugger, just to see if I could, muster up that sort of.
The first audition. Go back to the very first.
Go back to the first audition. See if I could pull that one off too.
So it'll be full circle for you.
Yeah, but Gus, I still feel there's more story to tell, and also the fact that they changed the song drives me nuts because when I did it, it was the aria, and it was so much fun to sing the aria. Then they went to this Irish drinking song, and then and in the movies they just cut the songs all together or whatever. It's like, but I loved that aria. And it was so much fun to sing.
Do you know why they cut it? Because I've heard different things. I've heard that some of it was just a couple performers didn't have it in their repertoire, and that's part of why they cut it. And then I think Growl Tiger got canceled because of the Siamese twins.
Yeah,
they just cut it completely.
But I saw a recent version of it, and I watched it because I just wanted to hear it again. And they sang it. And they just changed the words a bit, and it made it. And if it was now, and the Siamese they claimed aboard as opposed to the racial slur, and it was like, that why didn't they do that from the beginning? That part of it was the time period and all of that stuff, and also T.S. Eliot trying to be true to him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because they've made tweaks. It's been running for 4 years at this point. Like they made tweaks to a lot of things, but some I've kind of been like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And others I'm like, okay, that's a change. Like there's differences. I've still never seen, besides the 1998 movie, what I would call kind of more of the original, like the original choreography and everything else. I got introduced to the show in 2016. So I was introduced to Andy Blankenbuehler's kind of like redone version of it.
Revised. Yeah, Jillian was very, very fun to work with, but she was a pistol. She was crazy fun and sexual, and not afraid to include that into the choreography. That was a lot of it. Like Victoria's solo in the beginning of the show, when the white cat who does that slow développé and all of that stuff. According to Jillian, it was her discovering her own sexuality. She's a kitten. That is, she's discovering her own sexuality, and all of the male cats are around her sniffing around, but that her whole solo is her exploring her own sexuality.
Yeah, I've heard some really crazy stories about Gillian Lynn's kind of like interpretations and saying of it, and it's fascinating. But
some of the directions I can't say on, but they were very graphic, but also apt.
Yeah, we can say them here. I've recorded a couple, and then I've thrown a couple of them up on TikTok, and they're immediately removed, just immediately taken down. So I've heard a couple, but Okay, I'm going to take Gus off the table for this question. So who are your favorite and least favorite characters from the show?
It's funny, we're avoiding Grisabella, but there's a wonderful story there too. But I also the counterpoint of Syllabub is also an interesting character. That she sings the Little Memory beforehand, and that she's looking at Grisabella with idolizing her in her eyes, as opposed to the other cats who all want to rip her to shreds. She's an interesting character too. Munkustrap is the one that I find probably the least interesting. I feel like he's, as much as he's the pseudo leader of the tribe and all of that stuff, he's also basically the narrator. And I have no real interest in taking on that role.
I love it. What's your favorite song from the show?
The one that they cut, the aria. Moments of Happiness is interesting to me. I haven't been able to sing it a couple of times too. It's try to figure it out. It's a little bit obtuse in the lyrics, but if there's a lot of depth in that as well. And of course, Memory is everybody's favorite, but it's funny because now I hear it and I can't hear it done generically. I've heard it done with amazing people, and I've had great Liz Calloway and Lilius White, and such wonderful people, wonderful performers that I got a chance to do it with and hear them sing it. So now I'm very particular. Like, if you do it, you better do it. If you're just going to sing it, go away. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some incredible performances of Memory for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. My fun question. So I was introduced to you from a former guest of mine, Jamie Lambetti, who said, you got to talk to Mr. L. So I want to ask you, which cat do you think would be the best teacher? Since I know you were her teacher and are a teacher.
Unfortunately, probably Munkustrap. But the reality, I think Jelly Lorem. Jelly Lorem.
Ooh, Jelly Lorem's a good answer.
Yeah, I thought
Skimbleshanks.
Yeah, Skimbleshanks would be a fun PE teacher.
PE.
But I feel like Jelly's got the empathy to reach into people and give them what they need, and to hear and supportive, as opposed to just informing them.
Yeah. I thought the first answer I thought of when I kind of wrote this question was Jenny Annie Dodds, because I'm like, it's written in her song.
Yeah.
And then I kind of thought Skimbleshanks was like, well, you got to be prompted on time and keep the bell going.
Yeah.
But I love Jelly Lorem. I didn't think about that. Like the empathy she would bring to the classroom to be able to like get the best of everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's the best answer.
And she tells a story. She tells Gus's story so nicely.
So. Okay. $1 million question. And I believe that you're going to agree with me. So I'm ready to hear your defense. But I've argued at length that I don't think Grisabella should be the jovial choice. So do you want to defend Grisabella or pick somebody else?
Oh, I'm picking Gus. Gus is beloved by everybody. He's done a service for years and years and years. He's fading rapidly. And who better to go to the Heaviside layer and have a new Jellicle life?
I love it.
Grisabella, I get it. But what has she done for anybody else but herself through her whole life?
Yeah.
Whereas Gus gave to the masses. So Gus is my choice.
I want to ask you, you got to go on, you said, for Old Deuteronomy twice.
Yeah.
How hard was it to sell yourself on her as a choice, having been Gus for so many other performances?
It's funny because I think there was a little slight tinge in the back of my head. It's like, okay, Grisabella, but Gus.
Yeah, you sure?
You're next.
You sure
You're next.
Yeah.
You're next.
Yeah, that's fun. Because I've always thought, I do still think there's a world where you could do this differently. But I just can't even imagine you almost as Gus have to prepare yourself of like you are the choice until she comes back, and then you have to sell her as like that you're okay with it.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that you're going to switch for a couple performances to be on the other side of that, it's got to be hard mentally to do that.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a twinge. It's like, but really, I'm going to let you go this time because basically you sang that song. But the person who deserves it is the one with the handshaking over in the corner.
Did your cast ever think about that question? Like, of that, was she the choice or should have been you, or is anybody else even in the running?
I think when I saw the name of the podcast, I was like, oh, finally somebody's actually posed the question. I think we've all thought it. And some people have slightly mentioned it, but it was never really deeply discussed. And I'm glad it's finally being discussed. And the service that was getting shown to Gus is coming out.
So it's so interesting now because now I know it's being discussed and on all these regional productions and the tour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that purely because of me, or like was this just something that's always been happening? And it's a fun piece of this now because it's this all started as parody and the poking fun at it. But I do think it's an interesting debate because it opens up so many questions to the story. And I love you saying in the very beginning of today is the story that you were told that we don't need to know. It's it's okay. They all don't need to know this. I'm like, well, we want to know. A bunch of us want to know those things, and so we're gonna ask those questions and pose it.
And there needs to be some codifying of the story because obviously there's just different interpretations. Are they sisters or are they friends or whatever? Yeah. I think it makes it much more poignant as sisters, though.
For sure. I do think part of me wants them to just be together. Like, just have them be dating. Yeah. Because I think that's another different angle, too, that could be really fun. Because that song is so sexual and they're on stage together that, they could do a very different version of that song together.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. But that's been their whole lives, since they were kittens. Yeah. That basically, they were sex slaves. So that's all they really know is sexuality.
Yeah. It's again, and this is probably what scarred your daughter as a young child, being backstage with the human cats, but hopefully it goes over everyone else's head who brings their children to the show because it's a lot of the audience.
Yeah.
Any parting words? This has been super fun.
Oh, well, thank you. No, this has been great. Reliving the memories it's always a joy. I have pictures of myself in the role that I hardly ever see, but every time I look and I don't see me, I just see Gus. Good memories come back. So, and not just of Gus, but also the whole production, the whole experience, whether it be on the tour, on Broadway, or in some of the subsequent ones where they would bring me back, which happened twice. I think that I would pop in and meet new actors, a whole new set of actors, but all telling the same story and having the same kind of experience. It's nothing but joyful.
Yeah, it's hopefully if you can maybe share some of those pictures, we'll throw them on the social media with this particular episode. So
sure, be happy to.
This has been super fun. Thank you so much for being an amazing guest and sharing your experience.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been great fun for me too.
Awesome. And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.